time for Liberty Today. On today's program, Sam Kephart challenges Rounds to come clean on EB5. We'll have more EB5 news from liberal blogger Corey Heidelberger, and Stacey Wollman has news of a disgusting source of energy. All this and more on today's Liberty Today.
Energy independence is a term we hear thrown around by a lot of politicians these days. Sam Kephart, I know you have some thoughts on what is and is not the right direction for American energy independence.
Well, you know, Gordon, it's very interesting. Here we are with the recent, on the cusp of new discoveries, as you know, with the fracking that goes on, actually now all across the United States, not just here in South Dakota, North Dakota, or Wyoming, but now in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and some eastern places.
Yes, it's a technique that's working.
Not only is it working, we are building up very substantial supplies of natural gas. But what most people don't realize is this whole market balance globally for oil and gas is very critical to our national security. Think of what's going on in the Ukraine. We can't escape major news stations without the very intense confrontation, frankly, that's going on between Western Europe, the United States, versus Russia. And what most people don't realize is the core issue there isn't about the freedom and the economy of the Ukrainians, with all due respect to Ukrainian viewers. What it is about is keeping the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency for oil prices globally, number one. And number two, the fact that about 37% of Western Europe's natural gas crosses across the Ukraine. And there is no alternate supply right now. The supply chain doesn't exist to really help them out much. So when they do all this war dance, how serious do you really think the Europeans are going to press that with Putin?
Well, I look at it and say, how serious is America about energy independence when this technique that's proven itself to be successful and safe and has produced incredible economic prosperity where we've been able to use it, now finds itself at odds with the Obama administration and others who, there's a growing, building cry to stop fracking.
Well, let me make something clear to your viewers. I don't know about you folks. I'm not going back to the cave for the Obama administration and using his stinking presidential powers through the EPA. How's that for clarity?
Well, that sounds a little sharp, but, you know, I guess...
Do you want to go back to the cave?
No, what I'd like to do is go back, though, to the day when we created the Department of Energy to create energy independence. And I'd like to bankroll all that money, the billions of dollars, maybe trillions now, we've spent through the Department of Energy, which has been totally a failure. Take that money and invest it in energy production. Where would we be?
Well, ultimately, this whole thing with what the Obama administration is doing is a carry-on because that whole carbon tax thing failed. So they're trying to reverse engineer and basically force us into a situation de facto where in effect we're paying a higher energy, a built-in tax in the form of higher costs on energy. And the reality of it is it's to fund this new one world government thing. And I'm not going for it. I'm sorry. It stinks that they've thrown mud at the clean coal thing, that is not accurate. There are scrubbers now and technology they can retrofit onto the stacks of coal-fired plants that get most of the nasty chemicals and effluent out of there. And we are really putting ourselves in a box, and particularly here in western South Dakota, if we have to shut down those units over there in Gillette. That's where we get a lot of our power from,
There was
Gordon.
a power source in Rapid City, South Dakota, that just had to shut down. It was a backup power station called the Ben French Station, am I right? And that just had to shut down because it doesn't meet some kind of new energy regulations. Previously, it was running once a week just to make sure it was up and running. Now, we're without it because of government intervention and overreaching regulation.
But it's not even, the Congress has no say in this. This is Obama and company and the left-wingers putting their thumb on it. And I have a big problem with that. I'm sorry.
That is why the Republicans in Congress, in the House and the Senate, need to develop a spine. And regardless of the political consequences they fear, they need to simply stand up and be counted and do what's right for America. Do what's right for America in taxation, in regulation, and energy production.
Correct, and saying no to some of those lobbyists. You know, both parties act the same when it comes to big money in Washington. I'm sorry.
The more they say they're different, the more they become the same.
Right.
It's time for some significant change. There's no doubt about that. And wouldn't it be nice if we had all the money we spent on the Department of Energy and could use it productively in the best interest of America?